Darwin Leo Christiansen was born April 2nd, 1941, to Leo and Margaret Christiansen in Flint, Michigan. Dar grew up in Flushing, where he attended Flushing High School and lettered in football, basketball, and baseball. 7 days after his 19th birthday, Dar married his high school sweetheart, Pat Shiflett, who was a cheerleader at Lakeville High. Dar briefly attended the University of Michigan, then transferred to Albion College. At Albion, Dar played baseball and football and was transformed from high school quarterback to defensive and slot back. After graduating from college in 1963, Dar landed his first job teaching at his old alma mater, Flushing High School. He and Pat had 5 children while living in their Flushing farm: Joe, Anne Marie, Todd, Carrie, and Jeff. During his time at Flushing High, Dar honed his skills as a football coach who emphasized the passing game. This caught the attention of Flint Southwestern high school officials, who hired Dar as their new head football coach.
When we started opening day of practice, the staff had only met each other the night before. We never knew we knew of each other, but none of us had ever gathered in a meeting because I couldn't get the staff together. We did everything so late. So the night before the opening day of two-a-days, we're going through and guys are saying, well, I can coach this and I can coach that, and I had things that I wanted them to coach. But when all of the assignments were put on the board, there was nobody to coach offensive line and defensive line, and that's how I got to coach the offensive and defensive line, Greg. I never coached the offensive and defensive line in my life until that day we started opening day of practice at Southwestern, and the kids never knew it.
The first time I ever met Dar, we were in we had our first meeting, and he had some older plays that Southwestern used to run, the previous coach used to run, and he took the plays and he threw them across the room, and everybody looked at each other in amazement. And we said, oh wow, here goes another guy that's gonna come in here and say he's getting ready to turn this program around.
Well, it's probably not common knowledge that I really didn't know what to expect. I had some perceptions that I wanted to instill the passing offense into the program, and I only hoped that the kids would buy into it, because I know that Southwestern under Coach Jobson were very much run-oriented. The greatest thing that I found as an asset, and the greatest legacy that Tom Jobson left me with, was a defense that was just incredible. I mean, those kids hit so hard. I'll never forget our first scrimmage. It was against Saginaw Arthur Hill at Atwood Stadium, our preseason scrimmage. And honest to goodness, when the hitting started, I was in a state of shock because I thought somebody's going to get killed. I mean, it was just, that was the loudness and the volume of the hitting with Reggie Williams and Rick Taylor and Abel Herndon and those guys, Doug Rich. Holy cow. I really did. I thought somebody was going to get hurt out there, and it just kept up for 7 or 8 years. I mean, the hitting never lessened. And I owe Tom Jobson a great deal for that. All I did is our coaching staff came in and supplied an offense to go with great defense. And with great kids, it was pretty easy. But my early impressions of the kids was their physical size, their strength, their commitment to weight training. City kids are used to putting in the time. I mean, in the Saginaw Valley, you knew you had to put in the time if you expected to get anything out of it, and the kids did, and the results are pretty evident. I think the Dynasty started day one. That first team in 1971 lost one game 7-0. They could have easily been 9-0, and I think they finished ranked 5th or 6th in the state. And Dean Howe and the people at the Journal are always trying to get me to separate my teams as this is that and this is this. But I can tell you one thing, that's the greatest defensive team I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it's just incredible. They had Rick Taylor on one side, who nobody ran at in the Saginaw Valley. And when you ran the other side, you had to run into Reggie Williams and Doug Rich and Abel Herndon and Johnny Payne. I mean, I could go on and on. Matthews, Larry Matthews was a great, great captain, he and Mel Edwards. And that was as fine a football team as, no, that era started right then, day one. My first game at Southwestern at the stadium against Northwestern, we were behind the whole game. And Joe Zerbe brought us back with less than 2 minutes to go, and threw a touchdown pass or an extra point conversion pass after the game was over. I could still see him dropping back as the horn was blowing, down the old horn down at Atwood Stadium coming off the scoreboard as Joe was dropping back and let her go. And we won after the horn blew. That's how we started at Southwestern.
That was your first game?
First game. Victory after the horn. It just got better and better after that. I think the one game that typifies the pride of a Southwestern football player was the night we played Central at Atwood Stadium. It was either the first or second year. I think it was the first year, my first team. They beat Central 14-6, but they didn't play well. And there wasn't one word said on the bus. You'd think a big victory over your arch rival next door would be just something where the enthusiasm would be spontaneous on the bus. I stepped on that bus, and there wasn't a peep all the way back. And the kids cleared out of the locker room faster than I've ever seen them clear out before. They were not happy. They didn't think they played well. Is that pride? I learned plenty about Southwestern pride that night. The kids taught it to me. And I just built on it. Never saw anything like it. That game stands out in my mind.
Our very last game, we were ranked, I believe, #1 or #2, and we were playing Midland High School, Midland Chemics. And we had won that game. Dar may have won his very first state championship, his very first year. We scored a touchdown, but yours truly was offsides. Bye.
I remember the motivation that Dar could always instill in the people who played for him. I remember the coat helmets on the back, the little stickers on the back of the helmets for the offensive players, and also the little footballs on the helmet, offensive, the stickers for the defensive players. The kids liked him, and that was very important. He supported us as teachers, and if there were problems, he was always there to take care of them.
It meant a lot to me because I felt like our kids worked so hard that Atwood Stadium, I don't care if we were playing another city school, in the East End zone, that's Southwestern country, baby, and nobody's going to get in there. And I just believed, it's just instinctive with me, that nobody could beat us in that stadium. I don't care who it was. I just never felt like anybody could beat us in that stadium. And I guess it rubbed off.
In 1974, we had 10,000 fans. We filled Atwood Stadium. We played Flint Powers, and it was a great football game. But we filled Atwood Stadium. I don't think it's been filled since. And I mean, when you're at that level, down at Atwood Stadium, downtown Flint, you're playing for 10,000 people, that was a great thrill. And during Dar's time at the high school there, our team, we did that twice, sold out Atwood Stadium. You think about it now, if they get 200 fans at Atwood Stadium, that's great. So that was one of the great things that Dar Christiansen did for not only Southwestern High School, but the entire community in the city of Flint. He brought that spirit.
Oh, yeah. Some of those teams that came in, it had more physical size, and on a grass field could hold the game a little closer. It was like a track meet. I mean, one step for our kids, and it was, you're gone. You go on. The only times that we matched up equally were against City Series foes, because they had the same foot speed we did. And that's another reasons why I think the accomplishment that those teams made in City Series competition against equal competition is most significant. We had a good enough program going where there were always people who were just chomping at the bit to step in and give their best. And I think one of the offensive lines that probably will hate me till their dying day was David McHenry and Randy Dugan and the Rick, the Chicken Man, and those guys. I made them all go down and play JV ball as juniors because I had all senior offensive line, and those guys were good enough to play. And I just promised them that if they would go down and play JV ball as juniors, that the offensive line was theirs. And boy, they took me up on it. Nobody even got near them their senior year. But they did what I asked them to do, and I gave it back to them, and they were outstanding.
Well, you know, Dar had that one day where he thought he would try to break his team, and Dar, you know what I'm talking about. That was a tough workout, but you know what? Dar couldn't break us. They could get us. Bo couldn't get us. So, you know, they try, but, you know, we worked hard and got through it.
When you go back and look at the statistics on our scoring, we totally dominated our opponents in the second half. And I found out after I was done coaching at Southwestern that the guys in the Valley used to say, you better have a 3-touchdown lead on Southwestern by halftime or you're going to get blown out. And that's true. I mean, they knew, the opponents knew that they had to get a big lead because our conditioning program, our kids believed. They bought the program and they just believed. And the second half belonged to us and nobody else.
The summer workouts are on days when you, being a young man, you didn't have to be here, but he kind of had a way of making you feel the guilt that if you weren't here, you would be letting down your brothers. And that's one thing I learned never to do is when you're on a team, to stick in there, whether times are good or bad, or you're winning or you lose, and you stick in there and don't let down your brothers.
High school camp was as hard as any college or pro camp. The only difference in pro football and our high school camp wasn't the conditioning, it was just the hitting and you know, the physical activity is a lot more intense in pro, but as far as from a physical standpoint, our camp was as hard as any camp that I've been involved in.
I hated it. I absolutely, when I went up there, you know, I remember my junior year, we had to run a mile under a certain time. I didn't make it, and we had to do repeats. And I was one of the guys that had to do the repeats my junior year. And I think I had to do them for 2 or 3 days until I made my time. And I hated getting up at 6 o'clock and running. But, you know, it's something now you think back, and it really was a great experience. I mean, here you're with a group of guys coming from all walks of life. And I think that in itself, getting exposure to that environment made me realize the importance of being around different people and understanding their values and treating people equally. And I think we learned that, you know, and everything was team-oriented. Everything was done together. And going on to my senior year, you know, there was this team concept. There was a lot of unselfish people that, and when you think back of the talent that was on that 76 team, there were a lot of unselfish people. And camp was exciting. You know, the one thing I will always remember is Tom Elias opening a bottle with his eyes. I mean, I don't think he can do it today.
Getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and running on that sand track, and you know, that was tough. That was tough after staying up, you know, late in the wee hours of the night. And the only thing you can remember is guys waking you up, getting ready to run on that track, and doing the repeats in that sand. It was awful, but it made us a better team. It made us a closer team.
I know that if you guys made your times in the morning, I let you sleep in the last days, stuff like that. I mean, that's quite a reward, you know what I mean? Get to sleep in to 7 o'clock instead of 6.
Yeah. I think those 6 o'clock runs, although I really wish I could, you know, get out and do them again right now, but they used to just tear me up. The early morning runs were even worse. It was hotter later in the day, but waking up to a 2.5 mile run in sand with cleats on was quite a way to start the day.
You guys never went to bed anyway, because I went over there and caught you guys one time, and I can remember a bunch of guys were holding blankets up. The lights were all out, and you guys were playing with flashlights, playing cards underneath the blanket. I think you were probably in that group.
Oh, camp was, they ought to write a book about camp. Good News Bible Camp up at Gladwin. I knew when he said, bring your legs, lungs, and soul, that it was going to be hell, and it was. And if it wasn't for that, we would have never gotten through the rest of the year. I mean, we trained hard during the season, but getting up at 6 in the morning and doing a couple of miles, and you know, and then eating breakfast and then going out. I mean, I remember between my legs were raw because we were wearing those short shorts, and I had so much extra fat on my legs, and of course that didn't last long. But I mean, camp is what actually brought us all together, and I thank God for camp, because I really miss those days.
See, our family vacations would be like an Easter vacation. I'd call up Bill Battle, head coach at Tennessee, and say, we're going to go to Gatlinburg, Bill, with my family. Can I come to spring practice? Or I'd call up Joe Paterno and I'd say, Joe, we're coming out east, we're going to do some sightseeing, but I'd like to come to spring practice. I mean, that's how my family spent their vacations. When Reggie was with Cincinnati, I would go down there and spend a week at Cincinnati with the professionals. And you just watch and you learn. I mean, I observed everything. It was tough. It was tough. For Pat, it was probably one of the toughest times of her life. Anytime your husband's on summer vacation and he's spending 60 hours a week at his school on vacation, you got a problem. And she rightfully called my bluff, and I'll always be grateful to her for that. Because I had 5 kids, and she did a marvelous job of raising them. It was a good time, but it was a tough time for our marriage. Yeah. But through the grace of God and the Lord Jesus Christ, we got through it. I think the cheerleaders themselves came to me and wanted to be more a part of the program than just cheering on the evening. So I tried to incorporate them into the feeling more a part of it, helping with the dinners and stuff like that. But if you remember, there were like 3 elements of the pride and spirit we tried to incorporate it at Southwestern through pep rallies and other things we did. But one very key essential was the band. The marching band with Barry Wentz was just, I mean, Barry Wentz and I could probably put a pep rally on right now. We never practiced them. He and I just were on the same wavelength. He knew what I wanted, I knew what he would do, and he would do a great job at it. So Barry and I, and then the cheerleading sponsor, I wrote the programs for the pep rallies, and the cheerleaders had certain cheers that they really liked doing, and it just kind of all fell in. And then of course the team, and we just, I tried to incorporate the entire school. In fact, if I don't know if your program or you remember or not, but a couple of times I even had the entire school come down around, circle a team around the S. Because I wanted those kids to feel that those people on Friday night down at Atwood Stadium were a part of them. And it was a total school program, not just a football team playing down there for themselves. It wasn't that at all. I've seen other programs like that, but that wasn't the case at Southwestern. And I've met kids 20 years after the fact who felt so much a part of the program because they were in the marching band or they were just maybe even a student, and they just really felt a part of it. So that was my goal. That was what I really wanted. I want a total school commitment to the program. The horse still gives me chills. It still gives me chills. And I know our kids, when we'd be warming up at Atwood Stadium in the end zone, and Barry Wentz had kicked that horse on, you'd hear kids whimpering. I'm glad I didn't have to play us, because our kids believed. I mean, they really believed. And it was just a tremendous emotion, as you can tell. I'm still pretty emotional about it. But it's like I said, it was all part of that total program. I mean, the band was such an instrumental part of what we did, I mean, emotionally.
I can say this, the most incredible thing for me to learn was when you went through Southwestern's program, you took for granted that was what football was. And it wasn't until you left Southwestern and went to other teams that you realized just how professionally and organized our coaching staff was that made that experience so superior. And
then in the summer of '76, Dick Clark really gave me a little extra motivation. I came to school in the summertime, and Dick had we had 3 8-1 seasons in a row, and Dick, being the athletic director, had a bumper sticker made, and he put it on his door where all the kids could walk by in the hall could see it. It said 9-0 or Dar must go. And he meant it as a joke. I took it seriously, and my team took it seriously, and we won 21 in a row. And and Dick knows it was a joke to him, and we've laughed about it many times since, but I owe him plenty for that one, because he got us over the hump. He made us commit just a little bit more.
There were a lot of struggles. There were a couple games we were behind that season. But I don't think a team could have had more fun as a team than we did the night we beat Saginaw High School 71-0 down at Atwood Stadium. A home game, everybody on the roster got to play. It was the perfect football game. You know, you're ahead 57-0. People who barely made the cut got big minutes in that game. And it was just, it was one of those special moments where everybody got to enjoy getting a lot of time in the game. Everybody felt good about themselves when the game was over. We broke 11 state records in one football game. Flint Journal's lead was Southwestern rewrites record book. I don't really think it gets any better than that.
And interestingly enough, there were times in my career at Southwestern that I would go to a game and I'd have a lot of anxiety, as you guys well know. I mean, I was uptight. That season, I didn't think Michigan State or Michigan could beat us. I felt that good about that 76 team. I just didn't see how any high school team could stack up against us. I mean, even if they stacked up against us for a half, Budarakis would blow their brains out with that arm of his, and Booker could run through with Rodney Blah. I mean, it was just, I mean, who else can have Reggie Mitchell as a wideout and Rodney Feaster as the other one? I mean, how would you like to cover those two guys? Impossible. And Donnie Leach running patterns inside. No wonder Donnie ran around free most of the time. They're so busy covering everybody else that they, I mean, it was incredible. You could not stop the pass and the run on that 76 football team. Just too much talent. So I had a pretty relaxed year that year. The kids didn't know that, but I was very comfortable.
The Flint Central game.
The Flint Central game?
Central game. Our senior year, we both coming in. We were undefeated. Central, I think, had lost one game. It had all type of city and valley ramifications. So, and it was a huge game. I knew a lot of those guys. I had played with them and against them in junior high, and it was just a big, big game. And we come out the first half, they were right with us. And then the second half, we just blew them out. And yeah, that's definitely a big memory for me.
It was the midpoint of the season. I think we were going in 5-0, and they were a pretty good team. And you know, there was a lot of talk in the city, and the one thing that Dar had told us, you know, we kept our mouth shut, we didn't say anything to anybody, and we let all our talking be on the field. And you know, and I can remember this like it was yesterday. We were in our practice, and we had a terrible practice. And he got us around the goalpost, and it was the end of practice. And he started, you know, focusing on Rodney, on Booker, and me, and saying that we had not accomplished anything. But it was, you know, the way he did it, it motivated us. And it pumped us up, and it got us going. And again, that's a talent that he had. But anyway, at halftime, we were losing 21-20. It was the only game that we were behind, you know, and I thought that he'd come in the locker room upset, angry, and he actually was quite calm. And turns out we won the game. It was a great game. There were like, you know, 5,000 or 6,000 people there.
The boundary between us and Flint Central, that was a war zone. And I made it, it wasn't a war zone per se. I made it a war zone for our athletes, because I wanted to know when they crossed that line and walked on the other side of Lapeer Road, they could hold their heads up just as high as they could on their own side of the street. And that's big with me. Pride is a big thing for my kids.
I knew the running backs. Duncan, what was Duncan's name? Duncan P. And the junior, the guy behind him that had the audacity to come to our scrimmage at Atwood Stadium and start hollering how bad Central was going to whoop Southwestern. I never forgot it. I remember I got yelled at by Dar because I got in an argument with the guy on the sidelines. And when we got in the game, first chance I got, I whapped him upside his head. And that game was just so much fun. It was just incredible how much fun we had.
The thing I'm most proud of, and I think our kids should be too, is the 21 straight in the city. Never be duplicated again. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say never, it could be. But that's an accomplishment you can hang your hat on. Nobody touched our kids in the city.
I've had two giant or just major disappointments playing football. And one was when I was at Penn State, we lost the national championship game to Alabama. And my other one that's right up with them is our team not being able to go to the playoffs, because we were ranked #1. We were definitely the best team in the state. And that feeling, well, that's as low as I've been in my athletic career. You know, when Dar told us that we wasn't going to have a chance to go down and win the state championship, because we had made plans to, you know, how we were going to celebrate, how we were going to play, what we were going to do, and that's what we were looking at all through the year. You know, I went 8-1 the year before, and I said I can't go 8-1 again. You know, we're going to go 9-0. We're going all the way. And not to get that opportunity, it was just devastating to say the least. And that's one disappointment that'll stay with me the rest of my life.
I didn't know really how to tell him, Greg. The grief that I was feeling inside, knowing that I wanted more than anything else to get that team to the Silverdome. Knowing that if that team could have gotten to the Silverdome, they'd have beaten anybody in this state by 50 points. I know that, and I'll believe that as long as I live. It was just one of those situations where you face like a man and you reach back and you tell your kids, this is something we're going to have to deal with. Nothing we can do about it. The circumstances are out of our control. It's done by on a computer playoff, computer point system. We didn't get picked. We were #1 team in the state. We didn't get picked. I mean, what else can you do? So, but our kids handled it. I think the kids handled it probably better than I did, because I was dying inside.
Win, and I can remember at the end of the game, I didn't want it to end. You know, I wanted the season to go on, and everybody wanted to go on. There was a lot of emotion after the game, and in the locker room, you know, we found out that we didn't qualify, and I'll tell you, we went from a high to a low very quickly. And Dar went around to all the players, and he congratulated them. And the one thing that I always remember, that he told me, says, I was the first to lead an undefeated season, an undefeated team, and I'll never forget that. And it stuck with me, and I'm sure he'll remember that, and it was exciting. But it was a high and a low in one day.
But in the '77 season, the year after the undefeated team, we had awful lot of talent coming back. I wasn't really that worried until it was the night before the first game, when Ruben Luna turned an ankle and was out of the game. There goes my starting center and starting inside linebacker. So I really lost 2 players with 1 injury. And then on the third play of the game, Risto Niszewski got bent back over a huddle when the Nebraska scouts are sitting in the stands to scout him, and his career's over as a football player. He was the other inside linebacker and one of the best fullbacks to ever play at Southwestern. He's gone. So in less than 24 hours, one of the better teams we had lost 4 players, 4 positions. And Dale Bennett stepped up, and other guys stepped up, and I'll never forget the halftime. We're behind against Pontiac Central in the opening game of the season, and Reggie Mitchell went around to every guy in that locker room and said, it told him, don't fake me out. He said it a little more emotionally than I did, but he told him, don't fake me out. And I didn't say a word. I don't know if you remember that. I didn't say a word at that halftime. Reggie Mitchell said it all. And he told me on the way out the door, he says, Dar, give me the ball. I gotta have the ball. And I did, and they put 26 points in the second half on the board. They won that ball game. But great people, great people. They do great things when they're called upon.
We played Saginaw Arthur Hill, and we were ranked #1 in one poll, and they were ranked #1 in the other. And throughout the week, there was a lot of build-up for the game, and Dar, he talked with me all that week and just said, hey, look, Gary, you just got to go out there and relax and play football and let the other guys help us win, and he just gave me a real calming feeling throughout that whole week. And when the game was getting ready to start, there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to win that game, because he gave me that feeling that we could do nothing but win. It was just a matter of how many points we would win by. I just knew we were going to win because I felt like he knew we were going to win, so I felt like we would win. And that was the most memorable time, memorable moment I had in high school as far as football.
I'll tell you what, the 1977 playoff game was lost the week before. After the regular season, when we finished with our 21st straight victory, I got the Asian flu that weekend. And I don't know if you guys remember that, but I never made it to practice the whole week. And I had to sit 1 or 2, I think it was like Thursday or Friday, I made it and sat in the doctors wouldn't let me near you guys because it was so contagious that I would sit in in my car in the end zone. I drove down the hill at the field and sat on the edge of the field, but I couldn't coach. Not that my contribution was that important, but you don't get to that stage of the game and have the head man not available to his kids. And there were some things that happened that week that that just weren't good. And so we were behind the 8 ball, even though I was allowed and permitted by the doctors to come back and coach on that particular Saturday. The preparation, the Southwestern preparation wasn't there. We just weren't ready. And even then, we almost won the ball game. But it just wasn't there.
Dar Christiansen's tenure as Flint Southwestern's head football coach produced many players who went on to the next level and beyond. Oh yes, the raw talent was already there, but with the help of the finest high school coaching staff ever assembled, Dar molded and refined these athletes to perform at their fullest potential. Their careers represented Colt pride in the college and pro ranks. Despite spending thousands of hours coaching Flint Southwestern to 56 wins and only 8 losses, Dar, with the immeasurable help of his wife Pat, raised a beautiful family who playfully refer to him as Old Silverback. Not since Guy Houston has Flint seen a coach with the football savvy and motivational skills mastered by Dar Christiansen. The legacy of Dar Christiansen lives on in all of the players, teachers, parents, and students whose lives he touched. DC made us all Flint Southwestern Colts for life.
It's just instilled a lot of pride being a part of those teams for Dar, knowing how good we were, and everybody that pretty much played for Dar has went on to be successful in life. And it's just given us a sense of pride throughout our life to be able to look back and say, remember the good old days, remember how, all the things we went through and all the things that Dar made us do to instill that determination to be able to do whatever you want to set your mind to. And so I think that, anywhere you go, like seeing you, Tony, and Greg, we've got that bond that nobody else has. It's kind of like when I was in the Marine Corps. It's kind of a bond that nobody else can really share in. And so you just feel a part of, we can all look at each other and say, yeah, we've been there, we've done that.
I think Dar's efforts and motivation to get to his players brought a lot of that out in everybody. And he had a way of psychologically motivating his players. I mean, you could be sitting there thinking everything is great, and the next thing you know is, hey, why aren't you doing something a little bit more, you can offer 120% or 130%, and he get the most out of his players. So I think those things have been very influential. He certainly has been a major impact, has been a major impact in my life. I think of the people that have impacted my life, other than my parents. Dar's got to be probably one of the top 3 that has made a significant impact in my life. So I'd say those things I've carried along the way.
First of all, I was very fortunate, very lucky to have the opportunity to go to Southwestern. Dar, you're a great high school recruiter, and you know what I'm talking about. But once I arrived there, it was a great experience, and it all stemmed from the experience playing football Southwestern, playing for Dar Christiansen, and just the school pride, and again, the community pride, and the pride in the city of Flint. Something that, quite frankly, we've lost a little bit of that.
Well, Dar with me, it took on a little more meaning, I think, with most guys, because my father had passed when I was in 3rd grade, so I didn't really have a father figure. And Dar not only gave me discipline playing football, but he made sure it carried over in my personal life. You know, he'd keep track of my grades. If I started getting a little mouthy or something, you know, he wouldn't be scared to grab me by the collar and, you know, keep me in line on and off the field. And so I took a lot of discipline that he gave us on the field. I took it off the field and applied it in my personal life, and took it with me all the way up through college and pro football. And even now in my life, I still draw back on some of the things that he told me.
How to deal with life, mainly, the good and the bad, and how to push yourself for what you wanted out of life and not look towards anyone else to do it for you or give you a break. You have to make your own breaks and get what you want for yourself, basically.
I think the biggest thing that Dar Christiansen gave me was the conviction to do whatever I wanted to. Whatever I wanted to do with my life, the confidence and the conviction to see it through, and to set my goals and do my best, and succeed at whatever really I wanted to.
Some of the things that that I picked up from Bo Schembechler, a lot of the same characteristics, a lot of the discipline that Dar demanded from his players, a lot of the respect, the hard work, the work ethic. Now, those type things were installed by Dar Christiansen at the high school level. You carry those things over to the next level. And I was very fortunate to play under Bo Schembechler. And I'm going to tell you something, there's two coaches two great coaches, both of them, Dar Christiansen and Bo Schembechler in their own ways. Very similar coaches, disciplinary coaches. And you know, probably he installed that in his players at that high school level that they took to the next level. And then you take that on through life.
He was more than a football coach, he was an educator. And that's why I think we were such an effective football team. We learned from him, we weren't just taught by him. And that's what made him a very good coach.
Dar and the entire coaching staff, Marv Redman, Jimmy Jack, Fred Jackson, Eli, if I'm not leaving anybody out, they instilled in me to finish whatever I started, to do the best I can, and basically, you know, keep that winning attitude. If you don't try, if you don't do it, it's not going to be done. And I still, even after I graduated from high school, I'd work out, I'd run, and right here in this bowl, and remember that. And it would, I mean, remember that. And I never walked up the hill. I always ran the hill. And I did that in honor of not only Dar, but our team, our school. I was a Colt, and I still think that I still am.
Discipline, teamwork, and a fellowship that he brought to all of us that allowed us to love one another and not be afraid to cry with one another, and just a total love for your fellow teammate, fellow brother. It's a lot. He did a lot. You know, it's so much that you really can't put it into all of it into words, but you know, he just brought us all together, and it broke down all the black-white barriers. You didn't look at that. You know, you never thought of that. The only thing you've seen is Greg Walters or Greg Dawson or Reggie Mitchell, you know, Matt Thompson. You know, that's all you've seen. And he taught us how to love. And I'll never forget that.
Well, basically, I'm most concerned that the kids who had these experiences during that era. As they move through life, have something to fall back and reach back, because tough times are going to come, Greg. They do for all of us. I called on some of those great victories to pull me through when we lost our granddaughter in a car accident. And that and the Lord Jesus Christ got us through that as a family. Those kind of things are going to happen. I don't care. No one is exempt from that kind of thing. So if I was going to tell our kids anything, it's be ready for those kinds of experiences. Don't dwell on them, but you've got the strength, and the Lord will give you more to get through anything that happens to you in this world. And if I have anything to give them, that's what I would tell them. Just hang in there. You've accomplished great things, and you can still fight your way through this thing we call life.